Thanks for joining me in the kitchen today. Fall weather is here and it's time to start getting out some of the comfort food recipes. I thought today we'd make a real simple and hearty stew. So let's run through the ingredients that we need and also some of the substitutions that you can use. I've got some carrots here. You could use parsnips or any other vegetable. We have a little bit of celery, onions. We're going to use 2 onions in the recipe. We're going to use a whole head of garlic chopped up. Potatoes, you can use any variety of potato that you choose. And of course, we've got to have our meat for our stew. Now, when it comes to meat, stewing meat will break it down and make it more tender, so you don't have to look for an expensive cut. You can use beef, you can use pork, you can use chicken, you can use venison, elk, buffalo, whatever suits your fancy. We're going to add some tomato sauce. This is stuff that I made in a cooking video just a short while ago, fresh out of the garden. A little bit of balsamic vinegar. It adds some tang to your stew. We need a little bit of oil to cook our meat in, a little bit of water when we're stewing the beef. And then if you want to add a little enhanced beef flavor to it, you can use any type of bouillon. This is a liquid one I get quite often. It's really quite flavorful, and you can just add what you want instead of opening a pack of bouillon. And then when it comes to thickening up the gravy at the end, you can use cornstarch, or you can use a pre-made gravy mix will also work well. Stews are different in every household. It really depends on what do you have in the kitchen, what do you like, what's fresh. So use your imagination and just enjoy the process. So I've got a pot here, cast iron pot that I'm going to use. It's already heated and I've got some oil inside of it. So let's get the beef going on the inside. We're going to put the beef in, there we go. We're going to cook this until it's brown on the outside. We're going to leave the cover off and let any of the moisture come right out. And while our meat is browning up, I'm going to go ahead and get the vegetables all chopped up. The meat's all browned up. It's nicely sizzling in the pot. We're going to start to build up the flavors inside. So I've got all the vegetables cut up, but we're just going to add for right now the garlic and the onions. If you notice, I've left the onions, they're chopped up really coarsely, so is the garlic. And the reason I'm doing that is we're going to add them in, and we're going to continue to cook them with the meat for about 45 minutes to an hour until the meat becomes really tender. So all the flavor is going to come out of the onions and out of the garlic, and they're going to render down. Okay, so we'll just put that inside. Let's give it a little bit of a stir. There we go. And now we're going to cook it down. So we're going to take our water, and all we want to do is just pour enough in so that we cover the top of the meat. That's it. And now is the time that we're going to put the lid back on, and we're just going to cook this on a low heat, so it's just simmering. And we're going to do that for about 45 minutes. We'll check and see if the meat's tender. We'll continue cooking it on. Usually at this time, I'll add some balsamic vinegar. I'm going to put about, I'm going to say 2 or 3 tablespoons in. This gives some acidity and gives this really nice tang flavor to your stew. You don't notice the vinegar taste, but it really enhances the flavor of any stew that you're cooking. There we go, that should do it. Let's get a lid on. And we're just gonna let it sit, simmer up, and we'll check on it in about 45 minutes. Well, about 45 minutes has gone by. I've checked the meat, it's nice and tender on the inside. So we're ready to start cooking and adding the rest of the vegetables in. So I'm gonna add the potatoes. I've just cubed them. I've kept the skin on. I would rather wash the potato on the outside and leave the skin on than peel it off. There's a lot of vitamins inside the potato. It also helps keep the texture to it and not have it all break apart on you in a stew. So we'll put those on the top. I got some celery just diced up. We're gonna put that in as well. And let's add the carrots on top. I'm going to add a little more water, but I'm not going to add it to cover the vegetables. just want to add a little bit more. What we're actually going to do is we're going to steam the rest of the vegetables on the top. I'll put the lid back on, and this will take maybe about 20 minutes or so at a good boil. We'll steam it. Once it's steamed, then we're going to add in a little bit of our bouillon to add some flavor to it. We're going to add our tomato sauce, and we'll get that up to temperature, and then we'll add our thickener. So either cornstarch, or in this case I'm using a little bit of gravy mix in a powder, which is really just a flavored cornstarch is all it is, and we'll thicken it up afterwards. So we're going to let this just steam for about 20 more minutes, and we'll give it a check and see how it's doing. Okay, the vegetables are steamed perfectly. The way I can tell is if I pull out a potato, if I can just break it apart lightly with a fork, that's perfect. It's not overcooked. So let's finish up the stew. I'm going to take a small jar of tomato sauce that I made a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to pour that inside. That's going to add to the tangy flavor. You won't even know that there's tomatoes inside, but it really helps. It gives a little bit more texture, a little bit more color, and of course that acidity that really helps. I'm going to use some of the beef bouillon that's in a liquid form. I'm going to probably just put in about 1.5 tablespoons. I don't like to over season a stew. People are different in terms of how much flavor they want. And if you notice, I didn't put any pepper inside as well. The bouillon's going to give enough of the salt. If people want to add salt or if they want to add pepper at the table, they can certainly do that. I like stuff spicy, so actually I put a little bit of cayenne pepper in mine. It gives a bit of a kick to it that I enjoy. But this recipe here is just kind of a base, so you can add seasonings to it depending on what your personal flavors are. Will give us a bit of a mix. I'm going to add just a little bit more liquid, not too much. I still have everything hot and bubbling. It's boiling nicely right now. I need to thicken it up, but not too much. So when I add the thickener, whether it's cornstarch or whether it's a gravy mix, I want to add it very slowly and stir around, so I don't want to over thicken it. You'd rather go a little bit under, add a little bit more if you need. So I'm going to go ahead and pour a little in. I'll give it a stir around. I'll let it come back up to a bit of a boil. Once it starts bubbling again, that's about the thickness that you're going to achieve with it. Go maybe add just a little bit more. And there, a bit more for good measure, and that should do it. Okay, I'm going to take this off the stove right now, and I'll pour a bowl. Stews are some of the oldest dishes around. They've been, well, probably all the way back to the caveman days. They have been improved upon with different ingredients, but they're still one of those true comfort foods. So as we get into the cooler weather now, from time to time, treat yourself to a stew. You don't need to go shopping for anything special. Just look around with what you have. Pick some items with the flavors that you choose. We've all got to still be in our bubbles and at home a little bit more. And this is a great dish that is good for the first night. And I got to tell you, when it comes to stews, the second night gets even better. Thanks very much for joining me in the kitchen, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Please click subscribe now for my newest cooking videos. A printable recipe and ingredients list can be found on my blog page. You'll find the link in the video description box. Thank you, and have a great day.